Excellent. Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and it's a spectacular venue when you think about looking around and seeing a bit of green, a bit of blue, some big buildings, and a lot of really amazing people. And that's really what we've got going on here in Chicago. And it's something that we're building and have been building for years. I have the distinct pleasure, as Margaret said, of serving as the Chief Sustainability Officer for the city. So I work in the mayor's office, and I work with people inside the city, outside the city, and a great group of people together is building something. But we've been building something for a while, and that's part of the fun here. So if you go back 177 years ago when Chicago was founded, the motto that was chosen from the beginning was City in a Garden. And it was a place here on the banks of the lake, on the shores of the river, and you think about this very unique location. And we've been building in it ever since, and building something together in it. We actually built the first skyscraper in the city of Chicago, and we've done a few more since then. And people around other cities, they've also done the skyscraper thing. But as we've been building in this city, we've actually created an environment for all of us where people living in Chicago have a lower per capita carbon emission than people living outside the city. So interestingly enough, we're finding ways to build a very sustainable place to live. And as we think about it, about sustainability, about the environment, about the river, about the lake, it's really about building the most livable and the most competitive city by making it the most sustainable. And it is that interplay that is really spectacular here, and that so many people in this room have helped make happen, and that so many people in this room will continue to make happen. And so I want to talk a little bit just about some of the things that are in the city, but I'll do a reference to Margaret's comment about the state of the river many, many years ago. And so one of the big things in Chicago is people come from all over to visit. And people are always saying when they come visit, oh, you need to take the architectural boat tour. Back to that skyscraper thing and the amazing heritage here. And so I remember taking the architectural boat tour really early on. And it was wonderful because you're on the river, first of all, and you're seeing all these buildings. And I remember what our tour guide said, and he was talking to us about different buildings, and then we came along then, and he said, now if you look over there, those buildings do not have windows that face the river. That is because when they were built, the river was a horrible place, and it was not considered an asset. It would have lowered your property if you could see the river. And then he pointed in the other direction, he said, those are newer buildings, and look at the prime real estate. It's the river real estate. Look at all those windows. That is what had happened. We have changed that. We're continuing to change that. That strengthens the livability for everybody. That strengthens the competitiveness of our city. It's really because we're living more closely and with a stronger natural environment and river. And so I really want to thank Margaret and the work that she and her team have done for so many years to bring things about that are transformative for all of us. And so that's part of a really big picture in Chicago. When we think about nature in the city, there are lots of ways that happens. Towards more nature with those of us who are in the city. Some of it is places. And so Chicago has over 50 areas that are officially designated as natural areas. And some of them are dozens and dozens of acres, and we know about them. They go down to a quarter acre. So in neighborhoods all around Chicago, there are little pieces of wilderness. And we want to give more and more people access to that. We also want to get more and more people outdoors in general. So we're restoring playgrounds in every neighborhood. Get more kids outside. That's where we start. They're going to see birds if they're outside. They're near the river, they're going to peek over. They're going to wonder what's in there. And we're doing things like connections. So more and more trails connect them along the riverfront and then in other places. Big projects like Bloomingdale Trail 606, which is almost 3 miles long, and it's an abandoned rail line being turned into an elevated park, is one way to bring people closer to nature. And thinking about trails that are much more neighborhood-based is an entire other way of thinking about those connections. The Park District actually has over 300 acres of parkland along the Chicago River system. And when you think about kids and families playing, they're going to get those nature experiences. The next generation of advocates is going to grow up in our cities because they had a wonderful experience with nature. And they're going to grow up knowing the names of birds and knowing the names of fish. And Margaret, I love Margaret's comment about the 70 species of fish. And we're rebuilding the Riverwalk. It's one of the big transformation projects that we're all experiencing. It's going to create a more walkable amenity downtown. And the different sections of the Riverwalk have different themes. One of them has a strong sustainability theme with some floating gardens. And those root systems will hopefully help feed some of those 70 species of fish in the Chicago River. Those fish have some prime real estate now. We want to keep it that way. And so we've been continuing with great partnerships to build these pockets of nature on land and in the water. And I want to talk about just one of the really big ones, and that is Northerly Island. It again speaks to a fundamental transformation for all of us. So a decade or so ago, Northerly Island was an airstrip. You could land there on a little plane. And that changed overnight one day. And then it was flat for a long time. With great partnership, in this case, a huge partnership in the Army Corps, that is being transformed. The ecosystem is being restored, and it is going to be an incredible place for all of us. And the all of us, by that I mean the birds. We're putting on hills. Northerly Island now has 50-foot hills on it. And they were built by taking the land and the ground that was there and moving it around. In the excavation, the team found some of the original pylons that were used when Northerly Island was built around the World's Fair. And that's going to be left exposed for all of us to go back and to learn about our history and the impact that humans have had. But that land is now creating these hills. It's right on the migratory bird path. It's going to be extraordinary local habitat. There are little cameras that are going to go in. They're going to show mud puppies in their habitat, in their water. The kids are going to be able to go and see. But think about the location of Northerly Island. It's right there in the museum campus. So when you think about kids growing up in Chicago, not everybody in Chicago can hop on a plane and go to Montana. Not everybody in Chicago can even get in a car and drive to Wisconsin. But they're going to be able to come downtown and experience nature in an entirely new way. Things that kids learn at the shed, they're going to be able to go see in Northerly Island. Things that kids learn about the Field Museum, they're going to be able to go experience in Northerly Island. And then the stars that the kids learn about at Adler, they're going to actually be able to camp overnight at Northerly Island. So all of this science and engagement and community building, that is now going to be part of the resource there for the next generation of Chicagoans to build up and to strengthen this ecosystem that we all share. And so I'm delighted that we've got 30,000 new channel cats in the Chicago River. Margaret has helped me think about places where I might be able to see spiny softshell turtles. I haven't found them yet, but she knows where they are. I did ask when I was at the Lincoln Park Zoo, so that I know that they've at least found them there. So I'm continuing to look for that. But I'll leave you with one little wildlife experience that I did have, and it speaks to what we're all building together in this garden. So I was home one day, and I was on the phone. I was catching up with a friend of mine who lives out east. I hadn't talked to him in a while. So we're chit-chatting, how are you, how am I, he's great. I'm on the phone, and all of a sudden I completely interrupt the conversation. I said, there's a coyote. And he said, what? Like, there is a coyote trotting by. And he says, where are you? Are you in Michigan? I said, no, I'm in Chicago. So thank you all for building this great city. Thank you all for making sure that nature is everywhere. And thank you for figuring out that relationship so that everything thrives. We really appreciate it. Congrats to Friends of the River.